embracing the fear, I think, is something that actually moves the needle. Otherwise, you're just comfort and complacent. You're never going to, if you never approach your wife, right? You know what I mean? Or step into fatherhood. You know what I mean? It's scary. I mean, it's fearful for all of it, right? And it's building that team around you to help you.
Welcome back to another episode of Keeping It Real Estate. I'm your co-host, Dan Brisse, and today we have Travis Hasse joining us on the show. Travis has built a unique, successful career, one that's taking him from owning a successful liquor brand to multiple bars to operating a large distribution and logistics company that currently services Amazon. And that's not all. He's also invested in real estate, which is why we have Travis on our show with us today. Travis, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. I'm grateful for having you on. Thank you for coming on. I want to dive a little bit into your background, as an entrepreneur. I know you started out with bars and then you transitioned into the liquor industry. What I'm curious about is how did you in the beginning identify an opportunity to launch a spirits company?
It's one of those where you kind of get those aha moments, right? And we all go through something where we're trying to find something that just interests us at the very beginning. Okay. And I definitely wasn't that person where I was just going to fit in some box and sit into a corporate type mindset. I mean, you obviously were a professional athlete. I was a collegiate athlete. I played football in college, and I just always wanted to be around the good team success. There was just kind of that driven, just that thing to do something different, right? Instead of just kind of like that norms. And there's nothing wrong with going to an office or sitting in an office. I mean, it just didn't fit my personality. And in all reality, how it kind of led here was by real estate. And it was kind of funny. The very first bar that I got involved with, my friend Trent and we bought the property at a auction. And because Trent actually had the brains in the bar industry, and I always wanted to do something with real estate. So literally, I had $10,000. He didn't have it. And we went to the auction, and you had to put 10 grand down. And then you had, we won the final, the bid. It was 140 grand. And then they said, all right, you got 2 weeks to get us the other 132,000. Neither one of us had it, never financed a loan like that. So obviously call up a mortgage brokerage friend, and it was back into subprime loans. And he was able to get it written in 48 hours back then when loans were just kind of easy, to go by. And he actually got it on a 30-year home loan for us because it was an old house that was converted into a small town tavern. And it still exists today.
That's amazing.
I mean, it was built in 1940. It's just right outside of Madison, Wisconsin, called the Missouri Tavern. If you ever want to look it up, it's awesome. So it's just kind of amazing how this world works when you kind of put yourself out there, things that just kind of come to you, and that just kind of snowballed the whole arena.
Yeah. I think that's funny. We were chatting before we opened up this conversation here. We're talking about a hunter you introduced me to. And the thing I think about you, Travis, is in knowing you over the last year and a half about it blows me away at your ability to create opportunity and to move into industries and connect with some of the key folks. Like I've been in multifamily now since 2012, really pretty seriously, or really obsessively since 2015. And you've built some relationships with folks who I respect to the moon and back, and they really don't know me that well yet. Where here you have came into the industry and maybe traveling or flying around with these folks. And I'm just curious, the story you just shared about Cameron Haynes. Yeah. Meeting him running into him in the airport. What do you think it is? What's your secret sauce, or what is it that allows you to connect with people so quickly and move to the right people in the industry so quickly? Because it's happened in multiple times from my perspective.
It's actually just being aware of, I think, just around of, and just being aware of like your surroundings. Okay. And it sounds kind of weird and sounds kind of crazy. It's like I was walking out of a restroom in the Phoenix airport and I had my head down. I had like kind of like a hood up over my head a little bit. And I just got done playing golf with all my college friends throughout Scottsdale. And just kind of being aware where I noticed a pair of shoes that walked by me. Because the cool thing is about Cameron, like when I first met you and you said that your boy wanted to get involved into hunting and learning that. And the very first person I told you to follow is he's got a tell them to look up Cameron Haynes on Instagram. And it's not because Cameron can't, they call him Cam, right? But it's not like he's there shooting all the crazy animals and all this stuff. He brings a whole different level of how you and I got pretty close. Is you're the guy that had the discipline when we go to a real estate convention and you were in the gym. Like, I remember I told you that. I know that I met you at an event at a bar at Limitless, but the very next morning you were in the gym. And then you saw me outside working with my Dutch Shepherd. You know what I mean? And then we go to a Brad Sumrock deal and you're in the gym again in the morning, right? And, just us keeping that awareness of your surrounding, you can peg out those people that actually are bringing good to the world. And not saying that other people don't, but more people are just kind of aware when they can organically be themselves, they can inspire, especially like Cam's situation. I think truly he is a guy that has inspired young men to just be men, right? And to be physically capable, to know, to say, hey, you don't have to go out and exercise or do this just because somebody else is watching you. What's everybody doing at 3 a.m. when it's raining outside? Are you going to get up and put your sneakers on and go for a run? And in all reality, and he did all this where he ran a marathon a day while holding a full-time job as a public works plumber type, like working on like job sites around, like, I don't even know where he worked. I literally talked to the guy for, in my whole life, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and literally getting up and running 10 miles before work, running 10 miles at lunch. And then at night, he'd finish off the rest of his marathon. He did it every day for only sole one purpose, was to be able to move through the mountains, to be a better bow hunter with animals, right? To put himself in a good position to harvest an animal ethically. And that's how it all started. And even in his situation, Under Armour noticed it. They brought him on, and it was like the first outdoor bow hunter to be a professional athlete. And you can really relate to this being a snowboarder. Like, what took you to become an urban snowboarder out of Minneapolis or St. Paul, Minnesota? You became creative. You had a curiosity. And it's the same thing with everything. I had a very big curiosity after, I was able to exit a liquor company and I paid a ton of tax. And I was just like, how do I not pay tax again? And then, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And then you just kind of start going down those journeys and you're like, those are the people that I want to surround myself with. And then you just kind of start looking around and just being aware and still being yourself, and kind of peg some things that, some people do well, maybe mimic those mentors, and then also find the things that people are doing wrong and definitely know that I don't want to do that. Right. Yeah. So I've just kind of always just kind of honed into that and just surrounded myself with the good people.
Man, I love that. Some of the thoughts that come up in my mind when you talk about that, Travis, is just commitment. It seems like you can spot committed folks. Commitment. My leadership coach says commitment moves the world. And when I heard him say that, I was like, that makes sense in my life. When there was a time when I was in my snowboarding career and it was 100% focused on whatever part we were building. I mean, it was straight commitment where I'm going to make it or die trying. And I know that sounds extreme, and it is, but it's what moves the world. And so I think the other thing that I relate to when I hear you talk about that is just burning desire. You have this desire inside where you just have to do it. And that mixed with authenticity and a deep understanding of a certain, skill puts you in a likelihood chance of moving the needle far in some of these different areas of your life. So it's awesome. What were some of the biggest challenges you encountered in building this business that you think maybe other business owners could be seeing today that might help them, whether that's your liquor company or your Amazon van delivery company?
Number one thing is building the team. I hate to say it. I mean, first step always is just taking the step to do it. I know that sounds so dumb, but so many people kind of get locked into fear, and embracing the fear, I think, is something that actually moves the needle. Otherwise, you're just comfort and complacent. You're never going to, if you never approach your wife, right? You know what I mean? Or step into fatherhood. You know what I mean? It's scary. I mean, it's fearful for all of it, right? And it's building that team around you to help you. And definitely finding, me, I'm huge on mentors, like with yourself and Mike. I'm doing it with you, and you may not even know it, from that standpoint, but it's something that interests me, of looking at real estate and learning from you guys. And, even with having a mentor in life like Kenny, that I'm pretty honest and open. Like, my main mentor currently in my life is a gentleman named Kenny McElroy. And I've never talked one real estate deal with them that I've ever purchased, that I've ever done. I've never said, hey, what do you think of this deal, Kenny? I've never done it. I've kind of just kept my mouth shut, listened to him speak in the room. Some other friends that he introduced me to, I just kind of listen and get involved a little bit, but just stepping back and listening to everything that they say. And in all reality, it just kind of becomes organic. And when they're actually talking, I can almost finish their sentence by time I'm just kind of done studying the things that I like that they're going to say and implement it and just look at the basics of what's going to work. And like I said, having that team around you, it's great. Like it's, the current company that my wife and I own, I look at it as we're lucky enough to employ, we're about 265, I think the other day, full-time employees. And I can't do that all. And in all reality, it's learning to trust the other people that you put in the positions to actually allow them to make a mistake and have them learn from that mistake to be able to scale to those abilities is probably one of the hard things to do as an entrepreneur, not thinking that you're going to do it all. It's that kind of, where's that book? It's like Who Not How, I think by Sullivan, is a great thing. It's a great read, you know what I mean? And just kind of trying to learn and get a different visual from other people and moving forward. I definitely think is the hardest part about anything and looking at scaling and just starting in the first place.
Man, that's some good stuff, Travis. I hope you guys are listening and, you can re-listen to this. Number one thing, though, building a team. And that really resonates with me. Whether I look back at my snowboarding career, the success of our parts and what we were able to do was 100% dependent on our team, and moving into real estate, even more so. Like there are so many team members involved, and the best team in real estate really does win. And that's, something that we're working on daily, of picking the right team members, leading the right team members, getting clear on when that team member needs to move and we need to put the right team member in. I love how you touched on fear too. I mean, there hasn't been a thing in my life. I heard it a lot when I was younger snowboarding, like, you have no fear, Breezy. And that was totally incorrect. I had tons of fear, but the fear is what motivated me to work hard, because I could see, I knew how much an injury would mean to take me out of the game. So I put in extra work. And, I think, Ray Dalio, the line that comes to my mind with Ray Dalio just recently, it says, if you're fearful, you don't need to be fearful. And if you're not fearful, you should be. And so, the interesting part with that, with investing to me, is that if you're not a little bit on edge and you're hesitant and you have some concerns, you probably should. And if you do have that, it's going to protect you when markets shift. And if you're not living under a rock right now, the real estate market has shifted big. So, yeah. And really, really cool. A lot of admiration for Ken McElroy, one of guys that I look to have in our lives moving forward. And awesome that you've developed a relationship with him. And I love that it's, purely just out of friendship and qualities and core values that you think are great in a person. So that's awesome. Yeah. Kind of wanted, before we move away from the liquor part of your life, how did you eventually go on to exit that company? What was the deciding factor? Let's just say there's folks that are listening right now and they're in a business and they're thinking about an exit 1, 3, 5, 7 years out. What was it that you were like, yep, this is the time, we're out?
I could see it in the market. So my first brand that I did personally, right? And I started it out of the Missouri Tavern, and a lot of people just know it as apple pie shots. And people would make homemade versions of apple pie. It was, I always try to call it like the limoncello of the Midwest. People would make it in Tennessee, et cetera, where they would, just mix apple cinnamon, and it just would be kind of like raw grain alcohol just to make it taste good. So when I started, like, nobody had ever sold it to stores. And I'm just like, well, this is kind of asinine. How come nobody's ever sold this? I'm sick of making this to sell, to actually have it at the bar. And in all reality, even too, it's like, making your own kind of homemade concoctions and selling them at a licensed retail liquor store is a disaster. I mean, you're just waiting to get in trouble by somebody. So I looked at it as two opportunities. It's a way that I could actually sell it for the people that just didn't want to make anything at home. And could I put it out there? And the ignorance was bliss, to that, because I knew nothing about the industry. But when we look at timing, right, where we can look at like buying real estate in 2010 versus buying real estate in 2007. And when I started, there were 89 distilled spirits permits, which they call them a DSP, in the country. Now there's over 4,000. So you had some of your big operators that pretty much controlled that entire arena. And it's very heavily controlled and very heavily regulated, obviously being with alcohol, because they actually have an old government law, which is a 3-tier system where basically they put it after prohibition was lifted to try to keep the mafia out of controlling all of alcohol. So they tried to split up a manufacturer and then a distributor who would buy it from the manufacturer and sell it to liquor stores. And then the liquor store would sell it to the final consumer. And all along the way, you pay tax. There's a hit every single way, as you're going along. So as we were growing, I met a good mentor. This gentleman's name was Tom Moss, and he worked for Jim Beam, Fortune Brands, where he helped develop Apple Puckers. He worked on Maker's Mark. He worked on the Jim Beam brands, Knob Creek. So he had a really good grasp of how to work with the distributors to push large distribution. And Tom and his dad, Dwayne was 80 at the time, were starting a brand called Rum Chata, which is awesome. And I was in business for a couple of years before that. And basically, when I met them, they wanted me to move my brand over to help bottling so they could offset some of their capital expenditure for buying bottling equipment. And worked out literally to be the best move that I ever made. Because part of the deal, which his dad I was very grateful for it. And this, as your brands grow, you need capital. So Dwayne was like, he goes, I'll tell you what, I'll make your brand, I'll make it cheaper for you. You'll make more money and I'll carry your raw goods cost for you. Perfect. So I was running out of money. So basically it was just a good move for both of us. And then along the way, I went out and sold my brand and started selling, talking about Rum Chata and marketing Rum Chata for Tom. And Tom was in Chicago and he would sell Rum Chata in Chicago and help market my brand. And we did it for free for each other.
Wow, it's amazing. So great partners sounds like the foundation of it. And then, you guys had clear roles. You all had your levels of commitment to do what was needed in your parts. And then you could see in the market, the timing was just right and made a successful exit. It sounds like everyone came out very well and it was still great relationships, which is, that's the dream of every business owner. Start a company, build it, make great money. And when you do exit, be great friends and have great relationships for the rest of your life. So congratulations there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's awesome.
So you transition to Amazon then, or it's really a delivery service and you service Amazon. Maybe help me understand that.
Yeah. So ironically, that's also called a DSP, like distilled spirits permit, which I laugh because sometimes I mix it up because I'm so used to saying distilled spirits permit, right? But this is a delivery service partner. This is an awesome program. And ironically, it revolves around real estate again, right? So when we sold our liquor company, Brittany and I, my wife, we bought a place in Treasure Island, Florida. And in 2018, I happened to be sitting kind of down at our place by St. Pete Beach, Tampa area, and an Amazon truck drove by. So I walked up to the driver and I just said, hey, when did Amazon start delivering? And he's like, well, I work for a third party contractor and Tampa was one of the first markets they started delivering in. So I tracked down that gentleman's phone number and kind of looked up the program, applied for it. Selfishly, I wanted to get down to Florida to do something in nicer weather, but all those were spoken for. And they're like, hey, we're going to be opening up in Wisconsin. Do you want to be one of the first people up there? And I was like, absolutely. So a little time went by, and then all of a sudden COVID started hitting and, a little bit delays in their building that was open, but nobody ever had heard of it. Like it was just kind of like that, again, on the ground floor. We were using rental vans basically at the beginning. A couple, Amazon branded vehicles were coming out. But, I can't get into proprietary wise. I can't get into like a lot of crazy like financial details with Amazon. But basically it's, we're in an area, we have a contract with them to directly, use their branded vehicles, et cetera. But we're a vendor, right, to Amazon, and we're representing their brand with our drivers, and they're all our full-time employees to successfully do a great job of, good quality service and doing everything safely. And the best part of it, it was very low money to get into it. There wasn't a big financial impact of getting into what we're doing. And it's been great cash flow to buy real estate. That was one thing, right, of just kind of meeting Kenny. I met Kenny at a George Gammon event down in Miami called Rebel Capitalists, and met Kenny in outside the bar and just started talking to him a little bit, what I was doing and what he is doing. And he actually said to me, he goes, Travis, he goes, the only reason I own a company is to actually buy real estate. And I'm just like, what the hell do you mean? You know what I mean? I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do, where I can see through it of using that good income that you can pull off of other companies that you're buying real estate, obviously, and concentrating in real estate, becoming a real estate professional, logging all your hours, doing it the right way, taking yourself unactive, that you're not active in your company. And I have one meeting a week with my management staff to just go over all the metrics with Amazon so that I can concentrate on putting all my hours into real estate. And that way too, I'm dialed up with the IRS and et cetera. And I'm truly as a real estate professional and investing in the real estate. But
Yeah.
utilizing those companies for borrowing power with the banks and using it as cash flow to give myself the leveraging power to be able to be successful and to buying good cash flow and investment real estate. It's
Yeah,
pretty
that's
cool.
awesome. That's really cool. So when I think I heard you say you guys have 255 employees.
A little over 260 right now
Okay, a
that we
little over
have
260
full-time
employees. What would
employees.
be, yeah, just looking at managing 260 employees, what's one or two of the biggest keys you find in successfully keeping the 260 folks looking in the right direction, motivated, showing up and giving it their best effort?
Well, realize like when they're delivering, they're in a vehicle by themselves. It's good and bad. So what I was able to do and looking at that and scaling it was our asset, just kind of like a soldier with their rifle, right? I mean, that's their pride and joy that they need to take care of. In our situation is taking care of the vans and the people. So we have a good HR portion, which is Brittany. You know what I mean? I have a general manager and fleet manager, same person, because that someone's got to look over all the van maintenance, make sure all the vans are safe, keeping everything compliant, and then safety and quality to our customer. So we have another general manager that's just responsible for the safety of the drivers with training, quality of the packages delivered, making sure that Amazon customer is very much taken care of. And when you have those three silos and everybody focuses there, I just meet with them. You know what I mean? I'll show up at the shop here and there, right? And I just talk to the drivers personally. I don't get in the weeds with them about time cards and all this other stuff because they know the department that they have to go to handle that. It works well in the scaling. And it just, like I said, it kind of always comes back to the people and just putting them in the right place and letting them be successful because that lets me go out and concentrate on real estate. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. And we met Brittany. We had a nice dinner down in Dallas at a recent real estate event. And she was saying how many hours you guys were putting in through COVID because there's nothing else you could do. And I was
Yeah.
thoroughly impressed at the work ethic and the amount of time invested. So, I think the piece that needs to be heard too is that, jumping from a business to a business, it's incredible to create it. And there's a massive amount of work that's going on behind the scenes. And obviously, when you put the right team members in place and take care of like the three silos, like you're saying, success is almost guaranteed. But without that level of clarity and work ethic, it could all collapse real quickly. So anything you would add to that?
Yeah, and nice thing is, it's kind of like when I look back on it, we have zero external hires. Everybody started out as a driver in our company. And when you look at it from the scratch from day one, because you are right. I mean, because talk about being able to hire people when nobody was working because they all lost their jobs. Everything was closed. I mean, I can remember hiring a young man. He worked at the movie theater and the movie theater closed. And Caleb, his name is, great kid. He's just like, let me ask my parents if it's okay if I can come do this job interview. And it was awesome, right? And you kind of giggle, and he's been with us ever since the first day that we started for 4.5 years. And he's drawn into just being a great leader and talking to people. And like I said, I have to think about it. Every single person was a driver, including myself, including Brittany. As we moved up, that they've all had that experience, what it's like to be out there versus just thinking that you sit at the top and just kind of look down. I look at everything in an organization actually from, like in our case, like the drivers are at the top and everything funnels down to the golden goose, which is our company called Perfect Puzzle. And when you take care of the golden goose, it takes care of everybody. I'm not the nucleus, right? I'm on the outside, but the company's on the inside and everything else floating around it is kind of the way that I look at an organizational scale versus hierarchy with Travis at the top and push everything to the bottom. I look at it kind of almost like upside down or in a circle, that everything is just constantly working together.
Mm. One thing I'd say too, Travis, that I've picked up about you is just the way you're being, the person you are. If I was working for you, I would want to work hard for you. So there's something that is also, I think, is felt with Brittany too. I could see the two of you, that sort of energy really transferring from team member to team member. So there's something I think that's maybe not being said, but it's more felt and it's powerful from what I can see.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Keep that in mind as you guys are running your businesses and as we're running ours. I have those thoughts on a day by day basis of how am I being with this team member, and is the way I'm being going to produce the outcome I'm looking to create and the one that they're
Yeah.
looking to create, and can I serve the team members to create the future that maybe wasn't going to happen, that fulfills on or attempts to fulfill on all these relevant parties. And that's the
Yeah.
challenge of being a great leader. And if you can do that well, the sky's the limit. I mean, you can
Well, the one good thing that I notice on you that you do very well, and this is, I mean, you take criticism. I can remember like us talking about, like you and I talking about masterminds, and you're just like, well, why do you like that one? You know what I mean? Because you're curious. You had that curiosity of it. And then we were on a call together, talking about business, and we were talking, just randomly, back and forth. This person was talking and that person was talking, and I was able to say, yeah, sometimes you just got to give them the chance to make that mistake. And you're like, well, what do you mean by that? Because you would take the criticism, right? Of like, how do I look at it maybe differently? You still see it in your vision, right? But you're able to see an outside, so you don't have blinders on or in your own little cubicle mindset, right? Where you can actually broadly look. It's like in that book, right? Where you're either down, you're someone of a mindset where you're down and in the business and you're tinkering on everything. But a lot of times the leadership has to have the vision of being up and out. Where's the business going to go, and not getting bogged down with so many little things, but you still have a pulse on where things are going. Example, I'm sure you've been in real estate way longer than I am. You can look at profit and loss and know where people are losing money. And obviously you want to increase that NOI divided by cap rate and make sure return better for your investors, right? I can look at even I just had to call my wife this morning. She's in Florida, and just be like, what's going on with the payroll here? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I literally can just look at the P&L and I can say that there's something wrong, and I can come into that we're spending too much labor down there. It's like, are people finishing their routes, and start then just like you, where you can look at a property and break down that profit and loss and be like, we're bleeding money here, right? So let's increase this, XYZ, let's try this, let's do this differently and see at the next month, is it going to increase it?
I love that. So as you transition, you get out of the liquor and bar business, you're starting to head into real estate, looking for cash flow depreciation. You've gotten into some multifamily. What was your drive to get into multifamily, and what are you looking for now when you're looking to invest in a deal, in a multifamily deal?
Obviously, too, you run out of money yourself, right? So if you find good cash flowing deals that works for everybody, it can work for yourself too, as you're always putting your own money in as well. But trying to look at how can I expand cost segregations. Also, too, how can I leverage the people around me where I'm not getting bogged down with so much time, because you can just grow faster. It's just kind of like everything else, right?
Yep.
It's that team aspect that's around you. So when we want to break it down and answer your question of why do I like multifamily, I like it over, let's say, a normal commercial investment, because somebody always needs a place to live. And looking at our employees that we have, I can understand certain demographic and rental markets of people. I can relate to the people that are living there versus big, crazy, high-end class A is super cool. It's clean, it's new, it's everything. But is that a professional like lawyer that's renting from there, right? Versus my mindset is I like being around people like my drivers. We're not to say that one job is better than the other. We're just outside. I can understand their mindset of, because I'm the same way, but I know their price point of what they can afford to rent. They can't afford $4,500 a month. You know what I mean? It's a whole different type of amenity, and I can just see it and I can understand it. But I truly believe that everybody's always going to need a place to live.
Yeah.
And as it's cycling through, as more people are moving to the US to live, more people are moving out, you got different generations that are coming up. They always need a place to live. And AI can't take that away.
Yeah. Definitely. What are some of your end goals, with real estate investing? Are you not looking necessarily that far out? Are you looking in a 5-year, 10-year model, or is it to just continue to accumulate wealth through real estate? Is it cash flow, or what's your criteria of looking to get to where your end goal is?
I am a very cash flow heavy person because I think it gives you more opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. I'm also the mindset of, if I could hold all the properties you ever buy, would be fantastic. You know what I mean? To a certain point, but you got to catch a lot of markets, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, when rates drop crazy and prices increase so much, you could just cash out refi and give everybody their money back, and they're still making returns. You know what I mean? So you just got to catch that market right and when the right opportunity is. So I'm always open to all of it. But even like when I start a company, I'm not looking to exit that company. I want to build a good, solid, sustainable company. And if I ever do sell it someday, it's icing on the cake. And it worked out from that standpoint because everything's going to change. Even like when I started my liquor company, I didn't look to say, I'm going to sell this to a big guy. I am going to sell it to somebody bigger out there. My whole aspect was just survival, that I just wanted to maintain it. Because you always would read XYZ companies only last so many years and then they're out of business. But why is that? So kind of looking at those fundamentals where even on a real estate property, if I buy it, my vision is going to be to hold that property long term. But if something changes, I'll audible, but I'll utilize my education and knowledge from other people. Can I 1031 into something else? Maybe less capital expenditure going into it if I sold it, and I could put that down payment and money out to put into this property and maybe upgrade to a C to a B or to an A someday. Because, everything's got to be new and upkept. So, just trying to find that right path and move along, I always think is just having an open mindset and going from there. But truly, I would like to hold on to everything I ever bought.
Man, I love it, Travis. Well, I know I learned a lot, and I'm really grateful for you coming on the show today with us. And if our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, is there a way that they can reach out?
Best is on Instagram is an easy way to do it. And you can DM me, that's cool. But it's just Travis Hasse, Travis Hasse is kind of a great platform to use. You know what I mean? From that standpoint, for me at my age, I'm not a Snapchatter and all that other fun stuff. I mean, that's for your boys, you know what I mean? But Instagram, I use it a lot. I'm active on it. It's me that's responding to people, and it's without giving out my cell number and email and everything else of that nature. It's an easy way just to communicate with people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Love it. Well, Travis, thank you again for sharing your incredible journey. It truly does inspire me. And I know Mike and I have really enjoyed getting to know you better and working with you, and appreciate your time and perspective and coming on our show. And also to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode and you want to stay in the loop about future opportunities, just make sure you sign up for our email list. It's at www.granitetowersequitygroup.com/invest. And we'll keep you updated on everything happening in the world of real estate.